Hello, I'm Patricia Hart, Developmental Minister of this First Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington, Vermont. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for being here, members and friends and neighbors, Unitarian Universalists from all over Vermont and New England and other parts of the country and maybe other countries too. Wherever you are, whatever your gifts and questions, you are welcome here now. Unitarian Universalism teaches acceptance of everyone and encouragement to spiritual growth, each of us in our own way. If you would like to learn more about Unitarian Universalism and this congregation, you can find a link, a URL underneath this video in YouTube. You can let us know who you are so we can send you some information. We are apart today in body. We are united in our hearts, in our care for each other and the world. As always, I'm grateful to a wonderful team of people who helped to create this worship service. Thanks for music from James Stewart and Sam Whitesell, and to James, who is our producer. Erika, Reif, Margo, Whitcomb, and the puppets are bringing our reflection for all ages. And on this day of gratitude, we are thanking some of those who gave this congregation its life and energy this year. All the faith development class teachers and spirit play leaders and OWL facilitators and youth group advisors, everyone who makes Chalice circles and theme circles happen. Find a comfortable seat, have your chalice nearby, and as we settle in at a distance, let us worship together. The call to worship today is from the poet Adrienne Rich. My heart is moved by all I cannot save. So much has been destroyed, I have to cast my lot with those who, age after age, perversely, with no extraordinary power, reconstitute the world. And as we get ready to light our chalice, these words: may the flame of this chalice be a sign of life, the life we live together in this religious community, the life we share with all beings, with the earth. May the light of this flame be a sign of hope, a hope of peace, of understanding among all people, and of a future filled with love. May the heat of this flame be a sign of strength, the strength we need to begin again and again and again. Will you say the words with me? We kindle this chalice flame to remind ourselves of the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. And now, a reflection for all ages.
Margo, spring has really arrived this week. I am so glad. There is so much to celebrate. I see flowers coming into bloom. I see trees budding and new life all around. Last week, you and Erika sent all of us children some seeds to plant. And I have been watching them closely and taking care of them every day.
I am so glad, Piggy. That is just what we hoped for. We wanted to celebrate the bounty of spring, but also live out our promise to plant seeds of nurturing for the future of our faith and for all of your growing minds, hearts, and souls.
Thank you. That idea of planting seeds of learning like a garden is something I've heard before. I heard an idea like that from the ancient Greek pig philosopher Hippocrates, who said, learning is similar to when seeds are planted in the field, and the place where learning happens is like the nourishment that comes to plants from the sky around them.
Yes, Piggy. Hi, Margo. And hi, Erika. I heard an idea like that too, but it was in a song from Mr. Rogers. Did you ever grow anything in the garden of your mind? You can grow ideas in the garden of your mind. Oh, and I remember Reverend Patricia also said in the fall this year that it is important for all of us to actively grow our own faith, to live with compassion, integrity, service, and joy. Growing happens in many ways.
Yes, my friend. And today we want to honor those people who help us grow. Our many teachers and facilitators here at the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington, who have generously given of their time, talent, and love. Both younger and older, we have had our minds nourished, our spirits renewed through story, sharing, and communion during the classes they taught, the activities they ran, and the circles they facilitated. Will you help me with this?
Yes, let's.
To all our dedicated leaders, when there was a need, you came forward.
Thank you.
You shared a passion for our faith.
Thank you.
For your commitment to our children, youth, and adults.
And for coming as prepared to learn as you were to teach.
Thank you. For all things great and small you have given in your ministry to our congregation, we take time today to recognize and to
thank you.
May you who serve as guides and mentors in the journey of faith know that this congregation holds your ministry in deep regard and great respect.
May you plant seeds that will flower in unexpected ways.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Taking up an offering in the middle of the worship service is a very old tradition. It dates from the time when money that was collected on Sundays was the only source for, as they say, keeping the lights on. Nowadays, there are many ways of giving money, even at a distance to the congregation, whether you're right here in Burlington or on another continent. The ways to make a gift will be on the screen in just a minute, including an option to donate to the new Angel Fund, which has been created because some of us can give a little more money in the coming year in this time when some of us can't give at all. So why still do it? Why do we take up an offering in the middle of the service? We need the reminder that this striving congregation exists in the world with a purpose, to care for its members and the larger community, to teach and learn and inspire all of its people to do good things in the world, to dare hold a vision of a just and loving world, and to spend our lives making it so. This is a purpose worthy of our very high expectations and of our support. This week's offering will be shared with Local Motion, Vermont's statewide nonprofit advocate for walkable and bikeable communities, whose mission is to bring walking and biking within reach for all Vermonters. Thank you for your faith and for your gifts. Will you speak with me the words of dedication for this morning's offering? With gratitude, we dedicate these gifts in the service of our mission to inspire spiritual growth, care for each other and our community, seek truth, and act for justice. Would you share some moments of quiet with me now? Take a breath. Close your eyes if you want. Listen to my voice. Breathe and rest and reflect, whatever way is your practice. Listening first to some spoken words and then reflecting, calling up your joys and sorrows, and today especially the gratitude in your life. And after a moment of silence, we will sing Dona Nobis Pacem. You might imagine other voices joining yours. The meditation words this morning are by Barbara Crooker. All that is glorious around us is not, for me, these grand vistas, sublime peaks, mist-filled overlooks, towering clouds, but doing errands on a day of driving rain, staying dry inside the silver skin of the car, 160,000 miles still running just fine. And I think of how my mother struggles to breathe, how few good days she has now, how we never think about the glories of breath, oxygen cascading down our throats to the lungs, simple as the journey of water over a rock. It is the nature of stone to be satisfied, writes Mary Oliver. It is the nature of water to want to be someplace else. Rushing down a rocky tor or a high escarpment, the panoramic landscape boundless behind it. But everything glorious is around us already. Black and blue graffiti shining in the rain's bright glaze, the small rainbows of oil on the pavement where the last car to park has left its mark on the glistening street, this radiant world. What's glorious around you in these days? Spring, even when it makes us sneeze. Daffodils and forsythia and new garden beds. The neighbor who's kind to you or your mom. Delivery people who keep driving, keep bringing what we need to survive, to stay safe, to make us feel at home in our houses. The grocery store with its 6-foot tapes on the floor. Glorious people who wear masks even when they're clearly uncomfortable. I'm thankful for people who teach at a distance, online, and at the kitchen table, surrounded by books and toys and cereal bowls. I'm grateful for people who care for people. In the hospital, on the phone at the unemployment office, the friends who take the time to call or send a funny text. There is much to be grateful for even now, especially now, while present realities are so much with us, while the future beckons or stretches on uncertainly beyond our imaginations. What are you grateful for today? What reminds you why it is so wonderful to be alive? Hold your loves, your joys, and your sorrows tenderly. Remember that you are not alone. Others hold you as you hold them in mind and heart and prayer. Let us be quiet together. Take a breath. Let us sing.
Dona nobis pacem, pacem. Dona nobis pacem. Dona dona nobis pacem.
It's the first Sunday in May, the Sunday that months ago Erika and I designated as the time to thank people who served this year as teachers and facilitators and advisors in the Faith Development Program and leaders of the small group ministries called Chalice Circles and Theme Circles. You saw their names after the puppet show featuring Erika and Margo and Piggy the Puppet. In this strange time when every normal cycle has been disrupted, it's good to practice our seasonal rituals anyway. It is certainly good to practice gratitude, to thank people, to recognize them for who they are as well as for what they've done. To say, we know you. Your gifts, your generosity, your faith, they've made a difference right here in this community this year. Thank you. I've been thinking a lot about congregations in these times when everything is changing, when what seems fundamental to the identity of this and most congregations, this being together in beloved, shared, sacred space, the listening and the greeting and the laughing and the singing, all of that has been taken away. I have wondered if the whole thing might fall apart. That is not happening. Everything is disrupted, but the congregation is not falling apart. And that's true in part because, of course, people hold tight to the memory and the sense of what it is like to gather in that way, what it has been like in the past, and a hope about what it will be when this time ends. But it's more than that. The gifts that people offer one another in congregations like this one are powerful. They change people. In giving and accepting those gifts of time and attention and wisdom, people become more humbled or more grateful, more free to be who they are, more emboldened at their work in the world, more clear that they matter. Ask any faith development teacher or OWL facilitator or choir member or worship associate. People grow and change in congregations, which means that communities change, and because everything is interconnected, the world changes too. My job and the staff's job right now is to look for and find ways for those gifts that you share with one another to continue, even at a distance. Most days, I believe it's possible. I've learned a lot about all this since I became a parish minister, those many years ago. In the beginning, I thought my job was to anticipate challenges and be ready with answers. After all, I'd graduated from seminary. But in fact, that's not the job at all. It is people in congregation who identify challenges, not always clearly or realistically or for the best reasons, but still people come up with work that needs doing and with questions and answers and ideas that, frankly, I'm never quite sure they can pull off. Sometimes I'm right about that, sometimes I'm wrong, none of which is actually the point. And it is not the same from one church to congregation to society. Each one is living out its own story, which is the vehicle through which they teach one another and teach their ministers too. I have two stories to tell today from two congregations that I've known. The first, a small congregation in southern Rhode Island, was 5 years old when I arrived. They had no building of their own, so they rented space in an American Legion hall. We thought the challenges were to get big enough to afford a full-time minister and to have a capital campaign to buy or build a church. All that happened eventually after I left. But what we did in those early 4 years I was there that was most lasting was to create a children's program. A new religious educator, you understand, a very new minister, and lots of kids. We set up the RE space in the basement. We had to set it up every week because on Saturday nights, the lower level of the American Legion Hall was the bar, and so it smelled like beer every Sunday morning, and it had to be transformed. And it was. There were always stories and projects and plays. And one year, we made a coming-of-age program. There were, as it happens, 8 youth, 7th and 8th graders. The kids were up for it. The parents were not opposed to it. So we recruited 8 mentors from the congregation, many of whom had no children of their own or no children still at home. The youth and the mentors and the very new DRE and the very new minister, we built this amazing 6-month program with retreats and justice projects and rituals and soul work, which culminated in a coming-of-age service that I will never forget. The mentors and the kids wrote and designed it. They wrote a litany in which the youth said what they were grateful for that they had received as children in that congregation and what they needed from the congregation now that they were beginning to enter adulthood. The congregation responded, yes, and everybody wept. And I'm pretty sure nobody was ever quite the same. The second story is from a 100-year-old church in another state with a beautiful building and an impressive legacy as the only liberal church in a pretty conservative county. Because of that, people came and found them. Money, though, was always a problem. There was actually enough of it, but they always felt poor. Some churches seemed to cultivate conflict among themselves and with the ministers. This one did, even when things were going well. Congregational meetings were contentious. Let's say that words in that church were not always spoken in love. And then, during the summer, after the air conditioning was installed in the sanctuary, there was a problem. The blast of air-conditioned air that was directly above the candles that had been lit to mark joys and sorrows meant that all the candles burned all the way down every Sunday. And every Monday the job was to dig out a cement-like mass of wax and sand so that we could do it all again the next Sunday. It was dangerous work. So just for the summer, we switched from candles to stones, placed in a sand garden. People came up at that point in the service. They took a stone from the bowl held by the worship associate, and one by one, the people placed them together so that a beautiful and always different sculpture of stones was created. We did not anticipate that so many people would take part, many more than had ever come up to light a candle. We didn't know that it would become a treasured part of the service for children as well as adults, that kids and parents would find that they could be quiet together, even during our moment of silence, that even those who would never come up to place a stone would experience that ritual as their prayer, their solace too. In a church that struggled with words and decisions, a time of moving and watching and being silent became everyone's blessing. They never went back to candles again. Well, except on Christmas Eve and solstice. There are so many more stories that I could tell. So many times that I had the honor of watching people learn from one another, learn new ways to be and different ways to think, to imagine themselves and their congregations in the world in a different way. I don't know, none of us knows, what stories will emerge from this time at the First Unitarian Universalist Society. I hope those stories will recount how people came to know that the congregation can exist online too, as well as in person. I hope that they tell stories about people who really got to know one another, even when the pandemic or distance or ability or weather make it hard to be next to one another. I hope it will be remembered as the time that people learned that the edges of this congregation are much larger and more porous than we knew. I hope that this chapter, this coming up chapter of this First Unitarian Universalist Society's life, is a time of deepening connections and partnerships with this community that you love and care about. A time when the beacon that is Unitarian Universalism grows brighter than ever before. There is much to be grateful for, even now, especially now. So may it be. So may it blessed be.
For all that is alive, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift that we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift that we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
Let us extinguish our chalice flame. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with the world until we are together again. The benediction today is from the work of the Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman. Do not ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and then go and do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Go in peace.